Like, I think all of us are so like maybe caught up in our emotions that we sometimes forget the bigger picture. And sometimes when we
Being
actually
in the
remember,
moment. Yeah.
yeah, we forget the moment, but that's where like life is, right?
Welcome back to another episode of Music for Mental Health. And today we've got a superstar singer, Vanisha. So welcome, Vanisha. Tell us about yourself.
I'm Vanisha, like you said, and I'm a 21-year-old singer-songwriter, musician and producer. Originally from Leicester. I've been born and brought up here in the Midlands. But when I was about 19 actually, I had a gap year. I moved to London to study at the Academy of Contemporary Music.
What you're studying in at university?
So the name of the degree is Music Industry Practice, and it's like a combination of performance, production, songwriting, composition, like the best parts of music, I feel.
Wow, that's brilliant. So tell us about your journey in music. When did it all start for you?
So it started when I was 7, and as much as I don't like to admit it, it was because of High School Musical.
Wow.
Yeah, which is crazy. It came out when I was 7, and I was so obsessed with the songs from that Disney film, and it was obviously a hit. They had like a second film and a third one, and that kind of like spiked this thing in me that I wanted to be like a pop star, as every kid has like.
Yeah.
And I remember when I told, like, obviously when you're a kid, like no one takes you seriously, and I didn't realize how much I loved music. I just wanted to do that, and then so I started singing. And actually, in my family, music is really highly valued. My grandparents both sing, and they wrote their own stuff. My mom sings, and even my dad, he plays the keyboard.
Cool.
So it was like instilled in us that we had to kind of be musical in some way.
Yeah.
So also when around the same time, I had to like pick up a musical instrument. And because my sister and dad were already playing keyboard, they were like, okay, so now you're going to start keyboard. And I didn't have any like passion for playing the keyboard, but it was like because they did it, I had to.
Yeah.
And so I did grades all the way up till I was about 12. And I was doing my singing, but I wasn't a great singer. Like I wasn't born being able to sing. I used to sing from my nose for the starters. And I used to think back then that singing is just singing like on pitch, not involving emotion. And people used to encourage me because I was a kid, but they never told me that I couldn't actually sing. And I only realized until I became older and I had myself back. I was so determined to become a good singer. So once I was like 14, and I realized, my voice is not good, but I really want to do this. So I had a few vocal lessons at school. And actually, I ended up leaving keyboard and went into self-teaching piano and guitar. And I became like really sort of like developing my musical ear. With how different elements work in production and with composing. And then I ended up doing music as a GCSE, then did it at A level. And at this point, my parents were like, what are you doing with your life? You need to become like an accountant or a doctor. Like you must know in Indian families, it's quite common, And yeah, they spent 2 years trying to convince me that like, why are you going to do music? There are no brown people in this industry. And I said, I don't care, I will work as hard as it takes to develop my voice and do whatever. I was really stubborn until they finally gave in and supported me.
And I have a lot of respect for you for pursuing it as a career and really committing to it. And I think that takes a lot of courage. So I've listened to a few of your tracks actually, and you hear a lot. There's a contemporary sound, there's a spiritual sound. Who did you listen to growing up, other than High School Musical, which
oh gosh,
is also an inspiration?
Beyonce was massive. For me, I think I was 8 when I Am Sasha Fierce came out. And I think that was the point where she was kind of like transitioning from an R&B singer to being more pop. And that pop music is what I loved listening to. And I have like phases where I'm obsessed with like different artists and I like really listen to their music. I love Michael Jackson. But I feel like my music is like subconsciously, I don't mean for it to sound like these artists, but I think because I appreciate them so much, I think people like Lana Del Rey, Billie Eilish and Adele, the sort of contemporary feel with the Sanskrit mantras that I sing, that's kind of like what seems to come across.
So in terms of the production of your music, how's that evolved? So because you're a singer and a producer, which is really great, and it's really great to see more female producers. Do you look at these tracks differently with each hat, or is it all one thing?
I think it's become like one thing over time. It's really weird. I never saw myself as a producer until I made this track, and then I put it out, and then I was like, oh, I guess I am a producer now. Like that sort of thing. I've never seen myself as a producer, because I thought that you'd have to be able to mix and master to call yourself that. And then I realized that no, it's actually like different departments. So when I made my first single, I just sat down at the piano, and the mantra that I'm singing, a friend introduced me to it. And when I found out, so it's actually like, it encapsulates 1,000 names of divinity, but in 2 lines. And so I thought it was like really profound and, like powerful.
Yeah.
So I was like, I have to make some music around this. And then actually for days, I was trying to come up with melodies for the Sanskrit words. And normally actually it's a lot easier, but for this one, it wasn't. So there's actually a part of the song that people say is really catchy and quite repetitive. It comes quite often. And that part stays stuck in their head. So that's the first part I came up with. But then everything around it was like, how do I make this sound like one song instead of like 3 different songs?
Yeah.
So I went to like figuring out on the piano in a couple of days, and then I sat down in front of Logic, and I recorded the piano and my vocal.
Yeah. And
then everything else, like the strings, there's a bell that plays in there, there's a sitar that comes later on, like that's all around the vocal and the piano.
Well, we'll play a snippet of it in a moment, but I just wanted to find out more about what your thoughts are regarding music and mental health. So this series is all about conversations about how the two are linked and how people use it in a way that's improving mental health. So what are your thoughts?
So for me, I've actually suffered from anxiety from a really young age, since I was about 4. And people say to me, like, how could you have been 4 and suffering from anxiety? And it wasn't actually diagnosed until I was 18, when things became really like tough for me. Between 16 to 19, I was going through like grief of my grandma. I was going through like immense exam stress. And I literally got to the point where I actually didn't want to live anymore, because I couldn't find like a way through it. And that's when I finally went to see a psychiatrist when I was 18. And he asked me, when is the first time you remember experiencing anxiety? And I said, when I think about it, when I was 4, I used to get a drop in my stomach. And I was constantly like, I've been crying like all my life. Like since I was really, from then it's still, even now, I'm quite emotional as a person. And it can be out of happiness or anxiety or sadness, anything. But I was quite like always, on the verge, as if something bad is going to happen. I'd get like that feeling in my stomach. So then I couldn't believe that I've actually had it for all this time, but just never known that it was anxiety.
Yeah.
And once it was diagnosed, and I started treatment for it, and I've been practicing meditation since I was 17. And I think I've developed my awareness to a point now where I can catch it in myself before it gets really bad. So like I can catch it before it goes into a panic attack, and I know what I need to do to stop it. And with music, where it comes in is when my grandma passed away and that kind of triggered depression in me, I kind of used it as a way to like express what I was going through. So the funny thing is, like, all the music I've written from when I was 14 to about 19, 20, it's been really depressing. Like nothing like what I've released, because I wanted to release uplifting music, not stuff that makes you feel like, and all that stuff that I was coming out with, it never felt right to release. It was like, this is for me.
Yeah, but that well, thank you for sharing such deep stories about yourself there. I completely resonate with what you're saying, and for me, anxiety and depression has been this kind of monkey on the back type thing for my whole life. And I think if it wasn't for music, like I even thinking about not being able to play a guitar sends me in a state of panic, because it's just been an accompanying friend for as long as I can remember. I think that's what really kind of made me connect to the music that you're making as well. It comes from a place which is authentic. And using music in a way that is giving a voice to that heavy feeling. That's what I use. That's how I use playing the guitar, because it's hard for me to describe, but even with my patients, some patients who have anxiety and depression, they struggle to describe it. And when you have this voice and this ability to play the piano and produce music, it gives that feeling a voice, and it externalizes it into a form that you can distance from yourself, and it's therapeutic in that way. Yeah, so this is the track that you sent me the link for, and it's really cool. It's a combination of Sanskrit lyrics with English meaning as well, and it's very spiritual sounding, but it's also uplifting. Sure. And I've selected a short snippet of it, which features some English words and your Sanskrit vocals as well. Okay, so let's play that.
Wake up and see it's all around you. Look in the mirror. Who am I? Rami Ram Shri Rami Ram. Rami Ram Shri Ram. Rami Ram Shri Rami Ram. Rami Ram Shri Ram. Rami Ram Rami Ram. Rami Ram Shri Ram. Rami Ram Shri Rami Ram. Rami Ram Shri Ram.
Where did this come from?
Because I mentioned to you before that I'm part of this organization called The Art of Living.
Yeah.
Which is to do with using like breath work and meditation to kind of release stress, and just live like a more happier life, have a happier mind. And this friend, she like studies mantras, Sanskrit mantras from thousands of years ago. And she said to me, like this festival is coming up, this mantra is really good to chant. And when she told me the meaning and, like just sent it to me, I just had to like set music to it, like I explained earlier.
So tell me what do the Sanskrit words mean? It's
related to meditation, and it's basically saying by remembering the names of divinity, by meditating upon them, I'm kind of like inviting this feeling of wholeness, of feeling full. And it basically says that when I say remember this like form of divinity, I'm remembering the 1,000 names. With this, the English was very like accidental. So I sat to record it, the music was playing, and all of a sudden I was like, when you freestyle? And I freestyled these 4 lines that are actually now on the track. And I was like, oh, I don't know where it came from. And I felt so happy with it.
Yeah.
That the freestyle then became the English part of it, the lyrics. And they're quite deep. They also they come from like a spiritual discourse that I've heard on YouTube before, about, waking up to the truth kind of thing. Like being so conscious of the reality, like I think all of us are so like maybe caught up in our emotions that we sometimes forget the bigger picture. And sometimes when we actually
being in the moment,
we forget the moment, but that's where like life is, right? And we're so caught up in our emotions and all this stuff that we're going through that we forget that in a universe that is this big, we're like this small. And again, that doesn't mean that our existence is pointless, but it means that we are here, so we need to do something that has an everlasting impact and is for the betterment of the world.
No, I think it's quite an inspirational vision that you've had in this track. There's quite a meditative vibe to it, and I really like that. It's not so harsh in your face, and there's a natural tempo to this track, which draws you in, and I really like that. So it's really well made, so well done.
Thank you.
It's been really nice to speak to you, Vanisha.
Oh, you too.
So what's next for you?
What's next? Well, tomorrow I'm having my wisdom teeth removed.
Okay.
That's the next
Let's
thing.
take it one day at a time, that's fine. But musically, what's next for you?
Of course. Basically, like the reason I brought that up is because it's actually delayed the next thing I wanted to do.
Okay, yeah.
So painful to sing. But the plan was to release my second single in January. It might be February now, depending on my circumstance. But yeah, I think I just want to kind of, I feel like I'm still discovering myself and this experiment with the two worlds colliding. And I think like I'm really excited to explore that within myself and kind of see what kind of like individual tracks I can come up with over this year.
Yeah.
And I think I'm hoping that it will eventually lead to an album this time next year.
Wow.
But yeah, just making loads of music, experimenting, and hopefully collaborating as well.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we'll have to collaborate, definitely.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so where can people find you?
So I'm mainly on Instagram and Facebook. My handle is @Vanisha Music. And also if you put Vanisha Music into YouTube, it should come up. Right,
so thanks for speaking to us, spending your evening talking to me. Join us next time for another inspirational guest as we talk about music and the mind, and we'll see you next time.